For decades, whispers have swirled through Hollywood's most exclusive circles about a tension that supposedly simmered between two of cinema's most revered talents. The rumors spoke of clashing egos, professional jealousy, and a bitter rivalry that allegedly shaped both their careers in ways the public never knew. But what really happened between the fiery redhead who danced her way to stardom and the Welsh actor who would become one of cinema's most chilling villains? The entertainment industry has always been ripe with speculation, but sometimes the most persistent stories are built on foundations of misunderstanding rather than truth. After years of carefully chosen silence, one of them has finally decided to set the record straight. Shirley MacLaine burst into this world on April 24, 1934, in Richmond, Virginia, with the kind of restless energy that would define her entire life. Born Shirley MacLaine Beatty, she was the older sister of future Hollywood heartthrob Warren Beatty, but even as children, it was clear that Shirley possessed a fierce independence that would never let her live in anyone's shadow. Her mother, Kathleen, was a drama teacher who recognized her daughter's spark early on, nurturing a creativity that seemed to burn brighter than other children her age. Her father, Ira, was a real estate agent who provided stability while Shirley's imagination soared beyond the confines of their middle-class Virginia home. The smell of rosin and the squeak of ballet shoes filled Shirley's childhood like incense in a church. She threw herself into dance with the kind of passionate dedication that would later characterize every role she tackled, every relationship she pursued, and every spiritual quest she would undertake. By age 3, she was already twirling across local stages in Richmond, her red hair catching the stage lights like flame. The little girl with the mischievous grin seemed destined for something bigger than small-town Virginia could contain, though no one could have predicted just how far that destiny would take her. When the family moved to Arlington, Shirley's talent blossomed under the guidance of more sophisticated instructors who recognized they were working with someone special. She studied ballet with the same intensity that some children reserved for their favorite toys, spending hours perfecting positions that other students found impossible. The discipline of dance taught her about precision, timing, and the power of controlled expression. These lessons would prove invaluable when she later faced some of Hollywood's most demanding directors and co-stars, giving her a foundation of physical and emotional control that would serve her throughout her career. Her teenage years were marked by an almost supernatural confidence that both impressed and intimidated those around her. While other girls her age were worried about fitting in, Shirley was already planning her escape to bigger stages and brighter lights. She possessed an intuitive understanding of performance that couldn't be taught, combined with a work ethic that could be. Teachers noted that she had an unusual ability to inhabit different characters completely, losing herself in roles during school productions in ways that seemed almost mystical. Her break came in the most theatrical way possible, a story that would become Hollywood legend. While understudying in the Broadway production of The Pajama Game, the lead dancer broke her ankle during a performance. Shirley stepped into the spotlight with less than an hour's notice and delivered a performance that left the audience breathless and industry insiders scrambling for her contact information. She was just 20 years old, but she possessed the confidence of someone who had been waiting her entire life for this moment. Producer Hal Wallace spotted her electric performance that fateful night and offered her a contract with Paramount Pictures that would change the trajectory of her life. The contract was standard for the era, giving the studio significant control over her career choices. But Shirley signed it knowing that this was her ticket to the kind of stardom she had dreamed about since childhood. The transition from Broadway dancer to Hollywood actress would challenge every skill she had developed and force her to grow in ways she couldn't have imagined. Hollywood in the 1950s was a different beast than the industry we know today, operating under rigid studio system rules that controlled every aspect of an actor's career. The studio system ruled with iron fists, controlling everything from their image to their personal relationships, their choice of roles to their public statements. But Shirley MacLaine was never one to be controlled, and her rebellious spirit would soon clash with the expectations placed on young starlets of her era. Her debut in The Trouble with Harry showcased not just her acting ability, but her willingness to take risks that other starlets avoided. Working with legendary director Alfred Hitchcock was like attending a master class in filmmaking, and Shirley absorbed every lesson with the hungry attention of someone who knew she was in the presence of greatness. The film established her as more than just another pretty face from Broadway. She was a serious actress with range and intelligence. What set Shirley apart wasn't just her undeniable talent, but her refusal to play by Hollywood's rigid rules about how women should behave both on and off screen. While other actresses of her era carefully cultivated images of feminine perfection and demure compliance, Shirley embraced her quirks and contradictions with a boldness that sometimes made studio executives nervous. She was equally comfortable in dramatic roles and comedic ones, switching between vulnerability and strength with the fluidity of the dancer she had trained to be. The aroma of cigarette smoke and expensive perfume became familiar companions as Shirley navigated Hollywood's exclusive party circuit in her early career. She moved through these gatherings with the same graceful confidence she had once brought to the dance floor, but she was also developing a reputation as someone who asked uncomfortable questions and challenged conventional thinking. Her curiosity about life extended far beyond the boundaries of entertainment, and she wasn't afraid to voice opinions that others might consider controversial. Her breakthrough role in Some Came Running opposite Frank Sinatra proved she could hold her own against Hollywood's most charismatic leading men without losing her own distinctive identity. The performance earned her an Academy Award nomination and established her as a serious dramatic actress who could bring depth and authenticity to complex characters. But Shirley was just getting started on what would become one of cinema's most varied and impressive careers. She followed this success with memorable performances in The Apartment, a Billy Wilder masterpiece that showcased her ability to find humanity in potentially unsympathetic characters. Her work in Irma la Douce demonstrated her comedic timing and willingness to take physical risks for her art. Sweet Charity allowed her to return to her dancing roots while proving she could carry a major musical production. Each role showcased a different facet of her remarkable range, building a filmography that would influence generations of performers. The sound of champagne glasses clinking at Hollywood parties became the soundtrack of Shirley's rising stardom, but she never lost sight of the deeper currents that moved through her life. She moved through the industry's elite circles with ease, but she was simultaneously beginning a spiritual journey that would set her apart from her contemporaries in profound ways. Her openness about her beliefs in reincarnation and metaphysical experiences initially bewildered some colleagues, but eventually became part of what made her uniquely authentic in an industry often criticized for superficiality. Her spiritual journey began to intertwine with her professional life in ways that fascinated some and bewildered others, but never diminished her effectiveness as a performer. If anything, her willingness to explore unconventional ideas enhanced her ability to bring truth and depth to her roles. She wrote books about her spiritual adventures and never hesitated to discuss her unconventional views in interviews, making her one of Hollywood's most refreshingly honest public figures. By the 1970s, Shirley had evolved from a promising newcomer into one of Hollywood's most respected performers, someone whose name on a project guaranteed both quality and box office appeal. Her role in The Turning Point demonstrated her ability to draw from her own experiences as a dancer while delivering a performance of raw emotional power that reminded audiences why she had originally captivated Broadway. The film explored themes of ambition, sacrifice, and the choices women make between personal fulfillment and professional success, topics that resonated deeply with Shirley's own life experience. She was nominated for another Academy Award for The Turning Point, cementing her status as one of cinema's most versatile talents who could transition seamlessly between genres and decades. Her collaboration with Anne Bancroft in the film created one of cinema's most compelling explorations of female friendship and rivalry, showing how two women could be simultaneously supportive and competitive without diminishing either of their achievements. The pinnacle of her career came with Terms of Endearment, the film that would finally earn her the Academy Award that had eluded her for decades despite multiple nominations. Her portrayal of Aurora Greenway was a masterclass in controlled emotion and perfect timing, bringing together all the skills she had developed over 3 decades in entertainment. She brought depth and complexity to a character who could have easily become a caricature in less capable hands, creating a woman who was simultaneously difficult and lovable, demanding and generous. The role showcased everything that made Shirley MacLaine special: her fearlessness in exploring difficult emotions, her intelligence in understanding human complexity, and her ability to find truth in even the most challenging material. The Academy Award was validation not just of her performance in that film, but of a career spent taking risks and refusing to be limited by others' expectations of what she should be. Her later works, including Steel Magnolias and Postcards from the Edge, proved that her talents only deepened with experience and maturity. She brought wisdom and gravitas to roles that showcased her ability to be both formidable and vulnerable, often within the same scene. Her memoir writing during this period revealed the same fearless honesty that characterized her performances, sharing personal stories that illuminated both her struggles and triumphs. Throughout her rise to stardom, Shirley had encountered countless talented actors, directors, and industry professionals, most of whom spoke of her with admiration and respect. Most collaborations flowed smoothly, built on mutual respect, and shared creative goals that brought out the best in everyone involved. But there was one professional relationship that would prove more complicated than others expected, creating ripples that would persist for decades. As Shirley's reputation grew, so did her influence in choosing projects and co-stars, giving her a voice in creative decisions that few actresses of her generation enjoyed. Her standards were high, and she wasn't afraid to voice her opinions about the craft of acting and the responsibility that came with it. She believed that great acting required not just talent and technique, but also a deep understanding of the human condition and a commitment to truth that went beyond mere entertainment. The entertainment industry has always been a place where different approaches to the craft can create unexpected friction, even among the most talented professionals. Method actors, classical performers, and instinctive talents don't always blend seamlessly on set, particularly when strong personalities with equally strong convictions about their art form cross paths. The results can be explosive, creative, or both, depending on the individuals involved and their willingness to find common ground. When two formidable talents operate from fundamentally different philosophical approaches to their craft, the potential for misunderstanding multiplies exponentially. For years, insiders whispered about a particular dynamic that had developed between Shirley and another actor whose intensity and commitment to his roles were legendary throughout the industry. Both were known for their uncompromising standards and their willingness to challenge themselves and others in pursuit of artistic truth. As the 1980s progressed, both performers were at the height of their powers, taking on increasingly challenging and prestigious projects that pushed the boundaries of what cinema could achieve. The stage was set for a professional encounter that would test both their artistic philosophies and their ability to work together despite their different approaches. Industry observers watched with interest, wondering how two such formidable talents would navigate their creative differences. And yet, for decades, both kept silent about what had really transpired between them, until now. The whispers began sometime in the early 1980s, when both Shirley MacLaine and Anthony Hopkins were being considered for roles in several high-profile productions that would have paired two of the industry's most compelling performers. According to industry insiders who claimed to have witnessed their interactions, the tension allegedly stemmed from their vastly different approaches to the craft of acting and their conflicting philosophies about how deeply performers should immerse themselves in challenging material. The rumor mill churned with stories of heated exchanges during casting meetings and script readings, tales that grew more dramatic with each telling. Some claimed that Shirley had questioned Anthony's method of completely immersing himself in dark characters, expressing worry about the psychological toll such techniques might take on any performer brave enough or foolish enough to employ them. Others suggested that Anthony had dismissed Shirley's spiritual approach as unprofessional and self-indulgent, the kind of Hollywood nonsense that diluted the serious business of creating authentic characters. Hollywood trade publications of the era occasionally hinted at these tensions without naming names directly, using the kind of coded language that allowed insiders to understand the references while maintaining plausible deniability. Variety and The Hollywood Reporter ran blind items that seemed to reference conflicts between a veteran leading lady known for her metaphysical interests and a method actor whose intensity sometimes concerns colleagues. The speculation became so persistent that it took on a life of its own, growing into accepted wisdom about a professional rivalry that supposedly defined both their careers. Casting directors reportedly began to avoid suggesting them for the same projects, not wanting to deal with the potential drama that their collaboration might create. This avoidance may have cost audiences the opportunity to see two master performers challenge each other in ways that could have produced extraordinary art. The supposed conflict became one of those Hollywood legends that everyone referenced, but no one could quite pinpoint the origin of. But here's the twist that nobody saw coming. The revelation that would completely reframe everything people thought they knew about this supposed rivalry. The alleged conflict was never about professional jealousy or ego clashes at all. According to Shirley's recent revelations, shared for the first time in an intimate interview that surprised even her closest friends, her concerns about Anthony Hopkins stemmed from a place of genuine care and artistic respect, rather than any form of professional antagonism. She had witnessed firsthand how certain method acting techniques could affect performers long after the cameras stopped rolling, having seen colleagues struggle to return to themselves after inhabiting particularly challenging or dark characters. Her worry about Anthony wasn't rooted in criticism of his methods, but in genuine concern for his well-being as both an artist and a human being. She had developed her own techniques for protecting her psychological health, while still accessing the emotional truth required for great performances, and she wanted to share these insights with someone she deeply admired. In her own words, shared for the first time in a recent intimate interview that revealed the depth of her ongoing respect for Hopkins, Shirley explained, "People assumed I was being critical of Anthony's work, but the truth was quite the opposite. I was concerned about Anthony the person, not Anthony the actor. His commitment to his craft was so complete, so intense, that I worried he might lose himself in some of those darker roles. I had learned some techniques for staying grounded while still accessing deep emotional truth, and I wanted to share them with him." She went on to describe how she had attempted to reach out to him during this period, hoping to share some of the grounding techniques she had learned through her spiritual practices and decades of experience with emotionally demanding roles. Her approach was direct and caring, but perhaps too direct for someone who was accustomed to working in isolation and maintaining strict boundaries between his personal and professional life. What really happened between them was far more nuanced than the gossip suggested. A story of two artists trying to communicate across different philosophical approaches to the same craft. During the preparation for a project they ultimately didn't work on together, Shirley had approached Anthony privately to discuss her concerns about the psychological demands of their potential collaboration. Rather than the confrontation that rumors described, it was actually a thoughtful conversation between two artists who cared deeply about their craft and respected each other's dedication. Anthony, according to Shirley, was initially defensive about her suggestions, interpreting her concern as criticism of his methods rather than the caring gesture it was intended to be. His response was guarded and perhaps a bit dismissive, not because he didn't respect her as an artist, but because he was protective of the techniques that had served him well throughout his career. However, as their conversation continued, he began to understand the spirit in which her suggestions were offered. The supposed feud was actually a misunderstanding that grew out of their different communication styles and approaches to dealing with the pressures of Hollywood stardom. Shirley's direct, spiritually informed way of expressing concern was misinterpreted by onlookers as criticism of Hopkins' professional methods. Anthony's intense focus on his work and his initial defensive response was seen as dismissive of others' input, when in reality, he was simply protecting his creative process. Neither perception reflected the reality of their interaction or the mutual respect that actually existed between them. What emerged from Shirley's recent candor was actually a picture of two professionals who, despite their different methods, shared a profound respect for the transformative power of great acting. She described Anthony as one of the most dedicated artists I've ever encountered, and revealed that their conversations during that period had actually influenced her own approach to preparing for emotionally challenging roles in ways that made her a more complete performer. The truth, as Shirley now tells it, is that both actors learned from their brief but meaningful exchange, taking away insights that would influence their work for decades to come. She gained a deeper appreciation for the psychological rigor that Anthony brought to his work, understanding that his intensity came from a place of artistic integrity rather than ego or showing off. Meanwhile, he reportedly found value in some of the mindfulness techniques she shared, incorporating elements of her grounding practices into his own preparation routine. The silence that followed their interaction wasn't born of animosity or professional jealousy, but rather from a mutual decision to let their work speak for itself rather than engage with the Hollywood rumor machine that had already distorted their brief exchange beyond recognition. Both understood that the entertainment industry thrived on conflict and drama, and they chose not to feed that appetite with public statements that might be taken out of context or used to create even more speculation. Anthony Hopkins entered the world on New Year's Eve 1937 in the small Welsh town of Margam, a place where the industrial landscape of steel mills and coal mines created a backdrop that would influence his understanding of human struggle and resilience. His childhood was marked by struggle with dyslexia and a sense of not quite fitting in with his peers, challenges that would later inform his ability to portray characters who existed on the margins of society. His father, Richard, was a baker who worked long hours to support the family, instilling in his son a respect for hard work and dedication that would later characterize his approach to acting. His mother, Muriel, provided the emotional support that would help young Anthony navigate his early challenges with learning and social interaction, recognizing that her son's difficulties in traditional academic settings didn't reflect any lack of intelligence or creativity. She encouraged his interest in music and drama, understanding that performance offered him a way to express emotions and ideas that he found difficult to communicate in everyday conversation. The boy who would grow up to terrify audiences as Hannibal Lecter was actually quite shy and introspective in his youth, finding solace in solitary activities that allowed him to explore his inner world without the pressure of social interaction. He discovered that performance offered him a safe space to experiment with different aspects of personality and emotion, providing an outlet for the intensity that sometimes overwhelmed him in regular social situations. His talent was recognized early by teachers who saw past his academic struggles to the artistic sensitivity that lay beneath, encouraging him to pursue formal training despite his family's modest means. The encouragement he received from these early mentors would prove crucial in building the confidence he needed to pursue a career in an industry known for its brutal rejection of those who didn't immediately fit conventional molds. Anthony's journey to stardom was neither quick nor easy, requiring years of dedication and training that would have discouraged less committed individuals. He studied at the Royal Welsh College of Music and Drama, where he honed the skills that would eventually make him one of cinema's most compelling performers. The rigorous training he received there taught him discipline and the importance of understanding every aspect of a character's psychology, lessons that would inform his legendary preparation methods. His early years in theater taught him the value of ensemble work and the importance of serving the story rather than simply showcasing individual talent. The experience of performing the same role night after night for months at a time gave him an appreciation for the subtle variations that could keep a performance fresh and alive. Skills that would later translate into his film work, where he became known for finding new layers in characters even after multiple takes. The rough texture of theater costumes and the smell of grease paint became as familiar to Anthony as his own skin during these formative years. He apprenticed in regional theaters throughout Britain, taking on roles that ranged from Shakespeare to contemporary drama, building a foundation of experience that would serve him throughout his career. Each production taught him something new about the craft of acting and the responsibility that came with asking audiences to invest their time and attention in the stories he helped tell. His breakthrough came with his portrayal of Richard the Lionheart in The Lion in Winter, where he held his own against the formidable duo of Katharine Hepburn and Peter O'Toole, two actors known for their ability to dominate any scene they appeared in. This performance announced the arrival of a serious dramatic actor who brought intelligence and intensity to every role. Someone who could match the screen presence of established stars without losing his own distinctive identity. His subsequent work in films like The Elephant Man and The Bounty established him as one of the most respected character actors of his generation, someone who could disappear completely into roles while still maintaining the magnetic presence that made audiences unable to look away. His collaboration with directors like David Lynch taught him about the power of restraint and the importance of what wasn't said as much as what was spoken aloud. The role that would define Anthony Hopkins' career and forever change how audiences viewed him came with his portrayal of Dr. Hannibal Lecter in The Silence of the Lambs. His interpretation of the brilliant psychiatrist turned cannibalistic serial killer was so chilling and complete that it earned him an Academy Award and created a character that would haunt popular culture for decades to come. The preparation for this role was legendarily intense, involving research into criminal psychology and the development of physical and vocal mannerisms that would make Lecter instantly recognizable. Anthony reportedly based some of Lecter's vocal patterns on a combination of Truman Capote's distinctive speaking style and the mechanical precision of HAL 9000 from 2001, A Space Odyssey, creating a voice that was simultaneously human and somehow inhuman. He would arrive on set already in character, maintaining Lecter's unsettling stillness and penetrating gaze between takes in ways that made even seasoned crew members uncomfortable. His commitment to the role was so complete that he seemed to inhabit Lecter's psychological space even when the cameras weren't rolling, creating an atmosphere on set that everyone involved remembered as uniquely intense. One crew member from The Silence of the Lambs recalled how Anthony's commitment to the role created an atmosphere of unease that extended far beyond what was captured on camera. Even during lunch breaks, there was something different about him. He'd sit very still, with this slight smile, and you could feel the presence of Lecter even when they weren't filming. It was remarkable, but also genuinely unsettling. None of us had ever worked with an actor who could maintain that level of character immersion for such extended periods. The revelation of what really transpired between Shirley MacLaine and Anthony Hopkins changed how both the industry and fans viewed their respective careers and their approach to the challenges inherent in great acting. Rather than a bitter rivalry built on professional jealousy or artistic disagreement, the truth revealed a brief but meaningful exchange between two artists who approached their craft from different philosophical perspectives, but shared the same fundamental commitment to excellence and authenticity. The impact of their conversation, as Shirley describes it, extended far beyond their immediate interaction, influencing how both performers approached future roles and collaborations. Her willingness to express concern for a fellow actor's well-being, even at the risk of being misunderstood or having her motives questioned, demonstrated the kind of professional courage that has always characterized her career and set her apart from performers who prioritize their own advancement over genuine artistic community. Anthony's openness to considering different approaches to managing the psychological demands of acting, even when initially defensive about his own methods, showed the intellectual curiosity and flexibility that has kept his performances fresh and compelling across 6 decades of work. His willingness to eventually incorporate some of Shirley's suggestions into his own practice demonstrated the humility that often characterizes truly great artists. Their story also illuminated something important about how the entertainment industry handles the mental and emotional challenges that come with great acting, particularly when performers are asked to inhabit characters who exist in dark or psychologically demanding territory. The most powerful performances often require actors to access difficult emotional territory, and the conversation between Shirley and Anthony highlighted the importance of having support systems and grounding techniques to navigate these challenges safely. In the years that followed their interaction, both actors continued to evolve and grow in their craft, taking on roles that pushed them in new directions while maintaining the artistic integrity that had always defined their work. Shirley's later performances showed an even deeper integration of her spiritual practices with her professional work, bringing a sense of groundedness and authenticity to characters that might have seemed forced or artificial in other hands. Anthony's subsequent roles demonstrated an increased awareness of the importance of returning to himself after inhabiting complex characters, showing a more sustainable approach to the intense preparation methods that had made him famous. Their brief exchange had contributed to the artistic growth of both performers, making them more complete artists and more conscious practitioners of their craft. The broader Hollywood community also benefited from the example they set, even though the true nature of their interaction wasn't understood until Shirley's recent revelations. Their willingness to have difficult conversations about the demands of great acting, even when those conversations were misunderstood or misinterpreted, opened up space for other performers to discuss the challenges they faced without fear of being seen as unprofessional or uncommitted. The stigma around seeking support for the psychological aspects of acting began to diminish, partly thanks to the groundwork laid by artists like Shirley and Anthony, who refused to pretend that great acting didn't come with genuine costs and challenges. Their example helped create an environment where performers could admit to struggling with difficult material without having their dedication or professionalism questioned. The cultural impact extended beyond Hollywood as well, reaching audiences who began to appreciate the complexity and dedication required for great performances in new ways. The revelation that supposed feuds might actually be expressions of professional care and concern challenged assumptions about how conflicts develop in creative industries and reminded people that the most interesting stories are often more complicated than they initially appear. Both actors used their platforms to advocate for better support systems for performers dealing with challenging material, though they did so in ways that reflected their different personalities and approaches. Shirley continued to speak openly about the importance of spiritual grounding techniques and the value of maintaining perspective about the relationship between art and life. Anthony became more vocal about the need for psychological resources for actors taking on particularly demanding roles, sharing insights from his own experience without compromising the privacy that had always been important to him. Their combined influence helped create a more supportive environment for artistic risk-taking, encouraging other performers to push themselves creatively while also taking responsibility for their own well-being. The conversation they had decades earlier had ripple effects that continue to influence how the industry approaches the challenges of great acting. The lesson that emerged from their story was ultimately about the importance of honest communication in creative collaborations, even when that honesty might be uncomfortable or misunderstood initially. What had been misinterpreted as conflict was actually an example of how artists can support each other through the challenges inherent in meaningful work, showing that caring confrontation, when done with respect and genuine concern, can strengthen rather than damage professional relationships. What we've learned from Shirley MacLaine's decision to finally break her silence is that the most interesting stories in Hollywood are often the ones that challenge our assumptions about how creative relationships develop and evolve. Her revelation that concern was mistaken for conflict and that professional care was misinterpreted as criticism reminds us that the truth is usually more complex and more human than the rumors suggest. Both Shirley and Anthony Hopkins emerged from this experience as more complete artists and more compassionate colleagues, having learned valuable lessons about communication, respect, and the importance of supporting fellow performers through the unique challenges of their shared profession. Their brief but meaningful interaction contributed to a legacy that extends far beyond their individual performances, showing that great actors can disagree about methods while maintaining deep respect for each other's dedication to the craft. The entertainment industry has always thrived on conflict and drama, but the real story of Shirley MacLaine and Anthony Hopkins suggests that the most meaningful professional relationships are built on mutual respect, honest communication, and a shared commitment to excellence that transcends individual ego or method. Their example offers hope that creative collaborations can be both challenging and supportive, pushing artists to grow while providing the safety net of professional care and concern. So, what other secrets might be hiding behind Hollywood's most persistent rumors? Which supposed feuds might actually be stories of professional growth, mutual respect, and the kind of honest communication that leads to artistic breakthrough? The entertainment industry is full of assumptions waiting to be challenged and truths waiting to be revealed, stories that might surprise us with their complexity and humanity. If this story surprised you and made you think differently about celebrity conflicts and professional relationships, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into Hollywood's most fascinating untold stories. Share your thoughts in the comments about which celebrity feud you'd like us to investigate next. And remember that sometimes the most compelling truth is the one that's been hiding in plain sight all along, waiting for someone brave enough to finally break the silence.